One of the most important things to decide when dealing with your own personal morals is what happens when two of your moral agents conflict. Then you have to decide whether it's an exception to the rule or whether your action is morally unacceptable. Sometimes we have to admit that we indeed have done wrong. Please notice what it says on this slide. The burden of proof of whether this is an exception means you must show that there is a good overriding reason for allowing this exception. You have to decide and explain, I normally would do this, but because of this, I'm going to change it in this instance, but in this instance only. And this is a great example of that. An athlete has asthma and requires a specific drug to compete. The drug is on the banned list. The banned drug rule is do not use this drug, but the asthmatic cannot compete in a distributive justice sense. Is this an exception? And I think that most of us would agree that we would make an exception in this case. Although let me be clear about this. You don't have to agree with that. You can say, no, it's on the banned list, you should not use it, and that's it, period. And here's a rule that I try to live by. If I'm willing to make an exception, am I willing to allow the other side to make the same exception? Think about it. We're playing in a game, and we have a player who's an asthmatic and needs this particular inhaler, let's say, in order to be able to simply participate. If the other team has the same situation, am I going to be good with allowing them to do the same thing? Because if I'm not, then I shouldn't do it myself. This is an interesting case from the NCAA rulebook. An institution and its staff member may not provide transportation to an athlete enrolled as a student or student athlete enrolled, even if the student athlete reimburses the institution or its members for the appropriate amount of gas expense. Now, this happened at the University of Kentucky recently, where a student athlete walked outside of his dorm, was on his way to class. A guy had a golf cart there and said, just jump in, I'll drive you to class. And once the authorities at the university found out about that, they had to turn themselves in, and that player was ruled ineligible by the NCAA until they determined what was the cost of that trip across campus on a golf cart, and that student athlete reimbursed the person who owned the golf cart. It's a crazy rule, but these are the rules that the NCAA has in effect for obvious reasons that simply sometimes don't make a lot of sense. And then we consider this. A coach is driving across campus in a rainstorm and sees an athlete without an umbrella or a raincoat. If the coach gives them a ride, they are violating an NCAA rule. So you have to decide, is it worth breaking the rule for, or is it not? So if you pick up somebody in the middle of a monsoon, you're violating a rule. But are you more violating your personal conduct rule that you're not going to allow somebody to be out walking in a rainstorm like that and simply drive past them? For the remainder of this chapter, there are a lot of terms and a lot of definitions. You need to study these and use them as you matriculate through the class, and also as you answer the questions both on the discussion board and on our weekly assignments.